Right, good afternoon, everyone. This is Marsden Point News Radio on Wednesday, the 22nd of April, 2026. And this afternoon, we're just going to briefly go over the number of vessels that we have in the country just now and what's to come, and we'll update the distribution as well. So there's still a little bit happening out there, which is good to see because, as you know, what we were saying the other day was, we started off the month that looked rather insecure, although at times months do go like this, well, parts of the months go like this, where it can get very quiet, with the uncertainty with the war in the Middle East and the supply chains with crude refined products getting through. It was pretty uncertain there. So, but for now, things seem to have cleared themselves up in that department, although we are still going to be looking at other supply disruptions. We'll come to that in a minute. I will just give you a quick update on what's happening and the amount of tankers we have here, and will we make a sufficient number this month? Well, so far, just up to date from like an hour ago, our vessel count's now up to 10. And looking at the forecast and the schedule at yesterday, now up until the calendar month, we should be seeing another 5 vessels being added to this number. So again, that's going to take us up to, it's actually a better number than January at 14. So we will be looking at a slight increase there, just a little bit better than January. Overall, there are another 8 vessels on the list. Okay, going by a calendar month, the other 3 they will arrive in on the 1st of May. So, but it's still good to see that there's actually 3 vessels for the next calendar month. So that certainly is the sum that's there. If we go and we have a look at the fuel distribution around the North and South Island just now, it's sitting at 25. And with five other vessels still to come in, 2 of them are actually already here. This is going to take us up to 30, and just counting those 5, 2 of them won't go any further than Marsden Point, but the other 3 will certainly be doing other distributions around the North and South Island. So that figure again will hit 30, and then it will go over the 30 mark. And I'll just try and jump to my other screen there. And just looking for my different button there. So I'll jump over to this one here. And there we go on here. So if we look at January there, so the incoming fuel was 14. So we're actually just going to go just a little bit above that. Mornings again in January were down at 32. We will probably be well above that, hopefully, or just, it'll be marginally, but slightly better. There's the classic vessels, 15. That was for the total month there. So again, we're sort of looking at stuff like that, and we're pretty much going to run equal with February, and that was before the Middle East crisis. So, I mean, I did not see any alerts coming up of any fuel shortages, and certainly in the past that I've seen them. Well, I have numbers as low as 11 and 12, 13, 14. Okay, 14, but 11 and 12, 13 were not uncommon at certain times. So we should comfortably be looking at hopefully numbers like, it would be nice to see 17, but anyway, we hit the same as February. I wouldn't see any cause for concern there. We do have 3 starters off next month. However, what happens if things start to go wrong again in the Middle East? And and that's just going to be another watch what happens, and keep a watch on markets. Reports are coming out from Yonhap News in Korea, the Strait News at Singapore Times, and keep a watch on what's going on there. Read the alerts that are coming up, especially I do keep a really good read at the news out of the Korean Herald, Yonhap News, and the Strait Times out of Singapore. I diligently, anything going wrong in there, I will grab a hold of that news source first and see what they're saying, because they're sure to make noises first. But anyway, with all that being said, right, so I will, I'll just leave that screen on, in fact. So you've probably seen that there seems to be issues, well, there is issues with the supply chains, and it's not all about crude. Even though there's a great number of refineries that have suddenly disappeared offline, which is rather uncanny. Was it strategic planning? Who's doing this? But we're actually starting to see other supplies like plastics that are now being affected. And you start to ask, okay, well, how big a deal is that? Well, it is a big deal. It's petrochemical based. And how is that and other supplies going to affect us? What about the food chain, fertiliser? Now we've got plastics thrown in here. And it was actually Alistair that brought this to my attention last night. And I thought, right, so we've been going back and forward this morning. And I thought, well, I'll just invite Alistair on here and see if he can give us he can expand it a little better than me. So, Alistair, would you like to join in with us?
Good afternoon. Nice rainy day down here in the Wairarapa still. Yeah, there's a lot going on, and supply is definitely the issue. And another level to this is because there's so many refineries being knocked out or disabled and decreased in production, and of course having to repair themselves and everything like that. What becomes an issue is we may well have relatively good supply of product continue, although I doubt it. But even with that, it becomes, what is the price of that? Lloyd's of London is not insuring a lot of shipping firms now if they're anywhere near the trouble spot, but they're also upping the ante of rates for all the other areas as well to make up their loss of earnings. So that gets added to the price per barrel delivered. So we're seeing on the spot market the price of oil something like $89 to $95 US per barrel. But in actual fact, oil on board these ships now being loaded is costing $150 US per barrel. This goes through the supply chain as increased costs to everything. That's really going to put the pressure on the man on the street, because he can't up his pay packet as quickly as all of these suppliers are upping the ante for how much it costs to have delivered raw product, let alone processed product delivered to the point of consumption, production and consumption. So if you want me to go through what that means, the list of things that oil is responsible for supplying to us: naphtha. Naphtha is a very important product that goes into the production of all kinds of plastics: benzene, toluene, xylene. All of these are major ingredients in making any kind of plastic and synthetic. Those products are coming in second place or even lower to the need for diesel and petroleum or petrol. They come first because all the wheels turn with those first. So preference is being given to producing petrol and diesel and heavy fuel oil for the ships. The ships alone, to get a ship to New Zealand, a ship consumes something like 13,000 to 20,000 barrels of oil to just get here one way. Then it has to run back the other direction. Well, that's 1.5 million to 3 million US dollars per shipload to get here at the moment before the prices go up. We have stuff like paraffin wax. Paraffin wax is used all through the food industry and all kinds of other places. Asphalt for our roads, that's going on the back burner as well. Sulfur, lubricants for all our vehicles, fertilizers, stuff like urea, all that stuff. Healthcare products, pharmaceuticals are going to be majorly affected. People who are needing a regular and dependable supply of stuff for their diabetes and God knows what else are going to find the price. Pharmac and guys like that are going to have to reconfigure how they're doling out stuff and what the co-pays will be for people. Cosmetics, which I couldn't care less about. Synthetic rubber, 70% of modern car tyres are made of synthetic rubber, which is petroleum derived. So watch the price of car tyres go out of sight. if anybody needs a new set of tyres for their car right now, they better get along to their friendly brethren tyre dealers and get a set now while they're on the ground, because the next lots that arrive are going to cost probably twice as much. Anyway, that's my sort of basic intro to what we're looking at.
Right, it's quite deep, isn't it? I mean, petrol's and everything from clothing, to shoes, to computers, to everything we use is plastic. And naphtha is certainly in there with the hydrocarbons that are there. It's just, we're not always aware of something like that until we see a crisis like this and a supply chain shock. We wonder what's happened, and that's where, the reality starts to bite in of how valuable crude oil is and how useful it is and where it's used, and it's actually used in everything. Medical supplies, hospital supplies, there's another big thing as well, like plastics everywhere. As you mentioned, car tires. I mean, it's just the lubricants, especially. I mean, I forgot about things like paraffin wax and stuff like that. Kerosene, of course, that's another grade of jet fuel. So much comes from crude, and if it's not coming through, then everything else stops. Now, look at there was that article on RT there was bringing up a helium again, was bringing up that in the supply chain, which is used for MRI scans, LNG, liquefied natural gas. I think that's coming out through Kuwait. It might not be Kuwait there. Just check the article to see, but yeah, they certainly went through the articles. The list there was naphtha was at the top of the list there, and of course diesel is the mover, keeps the economy going there, and aluminium, another product that's hanging in the balance there on the prices. The helium is down there as well. So and that's it today, right? Where does it say? It was Qatari. It was in Qatar that happened in there. So they've got a bit of a breakdown in there. Of course, the sulfur, again, the king of chemicals, used in a lot of stuff. So, I mean, there's so much scheme. There's so much that's been affected now that's just really starting to come to the fore. And this is what you were bringing up last night, Alistair. This is why in the article from RT, then what came in this morning, and of course, with the listed refineries that have been taken offline now, and that's just like, okay, that's just another bit of pressure that's been added there to the other refineries. And Alan did actually bring up a point in the discussion group that he's written in there, and he's an ex-Marsden Point worker, was about the production that the percentage of production was run the refinery at 70% production, not 100%. But when they were doing intermediate servicing, the 12 tanks are normally full, and so were the two supply vessels for the North and South Island. So they could take the plant down quickly offline, do some service upgrades, put it back together fairly quickly. But it was once a year that they would do a major upgrade. There was a total shutdown, but that would require an expert team. What he was sort of slightly hinting on there was were these, or have these refineries been pushed at 100% that's actually caused failures? There's too many cogs in this wheel, ifs, ands, or buts, or could-haves, that I can't make a decision on what's right and what's wrong, and what happened. So I'm just going to leave it up to. That was a good point by Ellen, but I didn't even think about that as how much of this is actual takedown or the cost of trying to overproduce and keep up the numbers and the demand being there. It's only one of those things where it's happened and that's it. Alistair, anything else?
Well,
anything
my major concern is local. We can't do much about the world state of affairs, but looking at what's going on right now with America, Israel, and Iran, and all the surroundings, it is now ramping up. It isn't going away. We're going to see a continuation of this so-called war, I would say, into next year. At some point, it's going to become more obvious that there's a direct involvement of the likes of China and Russia, and that raises all kinds of questions. Unfortunately, New Zealand donated about $19 million from my memory in recent times to the Ukraine. So Russia isn't going to view us as a favoured customer. But, be that as it may, the people here are going to experience extreme effects by about July or August. Right now is that lull where a false sense of security may be actually being experienced. Kiwis are very good at tightening the belt very quickly, which is evident. I would say our consumption privately of fuels has gone down. That's my guess. I note that there's a lot of theft going on of volumes of fuel from truck depots and farm gates and stuff like that. I have acquaintances, friends who are in the security business, and they report that there is an enormous number of installation of cameras and security devices on farm properties and truck depots and the like, contractors' depots around their fuel houses specifically. So there's a real flush of activity economically going on for the security business, which is not a good sign to the community. We're going to see the cost of everything on the shelves going up week by week by week. I'm very interested and surprised in a way that the government at this point in time has not come out with an announcement. Instead of talking about Mr. Potato Head being safe as the Prime Minister, it would have been far more useful for us to have a real update of our fuel security situation and the ramifications of what that means through our economy and therefore down to the, every man and his dog at home. I think we're going to see a serious contraction of our economy between here and Christmas, and a major jump in unemployment and all the problems that come with that. Going into an election, that's interesting, and each day is going to become more volatile as this goes on towards November, which I believe is when the election is supposed to be. Things could get so dire by then we could be into emergency halt to an election and things like that because of instability, kind of like a War Times Act. People have no idea of how dire our circumstances are. We've got a certain amount of meat to export, which will be wanted and will be worth oil imports, but we can't sell much in the way of trees to people who aren't building houses, and pine cones can't be converted into breakfast cereal, so we've done an awful lot to disable our food production. Could call it coincidental, could call it planned, depending on which side of the conspiracy spectrum you live. Nevertheless, it's going to have a very, very big effect, and we're just seeing the beginning of we're just seeing the end of the beginning of this event, when we're by no means anywhere near any kind of an end, and I would say this will run all through next year. That's what I think. All quiet on the Western Front. You there?
Sorry, that was me. That was me. I forgot to take myself off mute. Sorry, I apologize. Right, I heard you, and I didn't hear me, and I thought, wait a minute, I looked, so I didn't click the mic. Anyway, as I was saying, thanks for that. Yeah, that's it's going to have such an effect on us that it's just well, I'm kind of waking up to it as well, and I just want to say thanks again for that video last night, the link to that. So I will put that link up in the discussion group there. I think it's well worth watching this. As I say, this guy, you don't need a degree to watch this. It's just straight. It's there for everyone to watch. It's a very clever young man. It's well explained. I got into it as soon as he started speaking. I knew what he was talking about. I thought, right, this is what I want to hear. I have been hearing this from, Christian from Ice Age Farmer and a few other people that are, they're well worth watching and well, listening to. It's good to take information from a few sources and, make your own mind up. But yeah, I will certainly get that video up, and we'll probably go at some point with another discussion and follow this through from there. Take it in whatever other information we can find. As you were saying, right back home here in New Zealand, yeah, food supplies. That's. I mean, we grow and we produce, as you're saying, we can export. We can export meat, which will make a good turnover now. But as for imports, again, it's shipping and supplies. The cost of everything is going to go skyrocketing. And as you were saying as well, Alistair, I don't expect this is not a quick fix, and this is going to take months to fix. If it does manage to fix itself, which I think if the war continues, which is most likely, I would say, more than likely now, they've already pulled out of this meeting, and so it's just a matter of, what do we do? How do we end it? Do we just bomb everybody and that's it, and hopefully it'll go away? I don't know. I don't think that'll work. Yeah, it's just saying, I think China and Russia's got too much at stake in this already, that I don't think they'll let this happen. Something big will come out of this, and it's not going to be good for any of us.
Yes, well, as I say, we are seen to be on a particular side. We are a part of the Five Eyes espionage network. We're regarded as the lazy set of eyes, I hear, by those who are close to the coalface with it all. But nevertheless, that's where we are. Our leadership shows their allegiance to that, and the man on the street doesn't get a say in it. We didn't even know there was such a thing as the GCSB or the Five Eyes until actually COVID came along and forced those things into the open. Left, right, wing, political stuff, both part of the same bird. We have a locked up political situation that's going to go on the side of the aggressors in this story, who started an event that none of us needed, and for reasons that are beyond what the average person can believe possible. This is actually a religious war. This is not political. This is not nuclear. This is none of those things, and it's so irrational and crazy. And this is the result. But as I say, I'm concerned about my neighbour, myself, my own grocery list, and those sort of things, because those are things I can do something about. I can't change the mind of oligarchs and dictators and Nazis who want to blow the world up. As far as bombing Iran into submission, well, how did that work in Afghanistan, and how does that work even Vietnam? It didn't work. There is no way you can use dumb bombs to blow up a bunch of people who are dedicated to survival over thousands of years into submission to some dumb idea. They already know that the plan is to eradicate them off the surface of the earth. So there's no end to it for them unless they stop the aggressors being the aggressors, which means a little patch of dirt the size of New Jersey on the banks of the Mediterranean has to go away. Well, that's what started now, and that's what's got to run its course. We have a dire situation where people are going to, those of us who grew up with a generation of people who came through the Depression, I have a clue as to what you have to do to survive all of this. But the plastic generation, as I call them, from millennials on down, they're still living in their mother's bloody spare bedroom. They have no idea of how to sustain themselves. There's going to be some unfortunate and sad-looking situations as this runs its course, but we have to get through it. And there is a backbone in this country. It just has to discover it again, and we have to put ourselves into a better position. That's on a macro scale. The immediate thing over the next few months is going to be shortages of things. My neighbours down the road have a sign business, a very big one, the biggest one in the Wairarapa. their prices have already gone up 30% since February for all the materials that they go through to make signage. That's just a little indication, and they're directly in the plastics industry, because everything from the boards they mount a sign on, to the printed material that goes onto the sign, to the dyes, to the solvents, everything's petroleum based, and the prices have already gone up average 30%. And that's not all about delivery costs. That's the cost of the product plus delivery. And they are being told by their suppliers, stock up on some stuff, because there's going to be gaps. There's going to be lacks of certain key parts to it all to complete your product. So, you know, we're just at the beginning of this.
Alistair, also, I did read the, I mean, it's quite ironic, but there was a plastic bag shortage in Korea, South Korea there, which sent everybody into panic because they had to switch back to paper. But not only that, but the other thing you were saying about plastics was food product manufacturing. Everything comes in plastic containers these days, including the container, you know, for meats and the wrapping itself. Dishwashing liquids, silly little things like that is all wrapped up in plastic.
Not only that, we've got paraffin. Paraffin is all through the food packaging and containment stuff. You know, there's coatings on packaging and fruits and vegetables. Paraffin is all through it in a big way. So, you know, there's no direction you can look practically in food and transport and the needs of daily life that isn't now a petroleum dependent product line. You take petroleum supply out of it and all of it disappears. You don't end up with a finished product. We have very little that is not petroleum linked.
Yeah, this doesn't paint a pretty picture for neither short or long term, does it? It's going to hit.
Well, you know, you think about it, all of these people who are going off grid and they have solar panels. Solar panels, the biggest component in a solar panel is the plastic packaging that it's contained in. You can't make a solar panel without the plastic. You can't make the integrated circuitry without helium. You can't do any of the finished products without naphtha. You cannot do any of it when you don't have all of those coming together from different sources. They don't all come from one factory anymore. They come from all around the planet to be delivered to a place to put it all together. Well, that's what's now breaking, and in many cases already broken. We're just working through the supplies of stuff that were produced before this event. It's only 2 months. We are going to see the worst of it in 5 months' time, and unfortunately, the people are shell-shocked from the last decade or so of experiences, particularly the COVID events. They don't, you know, the old saying, denial is not a river in Egypt. You've got to wake up. You've got to get yourself organised as best you can, and we need community. People help people. Sure, we need all of these things, but, you know, it would be good to know somebody who's got chooks that lay eggs, you know. It's going to get very practical here soon.
Yeah. I've been reading quite a bit in those subjects as well, especially you know, Ice Age Farmer and quite a few other guys are saying the same thing. You know, you need to wake up and step up, because you're going to have to lift your game, because you're not seeing it just now. You know, it's not just they had that war back in February 28th. It's ran for 40 days, but just because that's over, it's the effects, the full effects of that are still yet to come because of the supply chains. And this is what we're now reading and now seeing is it's taken a while to kick in. It's starting to kick in. And as you were saying, Alistair, it's going to maybe just take another month or so before we actually see the real hit that we're going to actually have to face. And as you say, if they kick that war up again, it's going to add another, say marbles underneath the wheels and stuff like that. And it's not going to look good.
Spanners in the works. So let's not forget that in 1929 the stock market crashed. the word depression wasn't coined until late 1931. Well, things are happening much more quickly now, but we've got a similar state of affairs going on. So this so-called war broke out 2 months ago. It's not been called a war yet, but it very definitely is, and it probably actually is World War III when history's written about it all. We're only in the beginning stages of it. This is sort of like the blockade of the Japanese that resulted in the well anticipated and hoped for event that happened in Honolulu. These things take time to wind through. The pressure's being applied now. Those who are at the primary end of it know it's going on. That's why I say Lloyd's of London upping all of their fees for insurance outside of the zone. They're already aware that this is far bigger than just the Gulf. They won't cover anybody in the Gulf itself, but they're upping the ante and the charges to shipping companies all around the world because they know what this means.
Yeah, well, it certainly doesn't paint a good picture, does it? So, well, look, maybe we could come back and do part 2 on this. We've just gone over half an hour there, and we'll just come back and do a part 2. I'll get that video out, get that video link, and I will actually post it on YouTube as well, so folk that are watching this can actually grab that link. So it's not just Telegram; it's also on YouTube as well. This article in a condensed form will go to eLocal, so I'll get the transcript done this afternoon. It doesn't take long. Get it to Michael, he'll get it on eLocal this afternoon. So I'll put the link up on there in the YouTube description as well when that comes up, and you can take a read at it. And actually, I'd encourage you to subscribe. This will be my 3rd article there. So and hopefully, Alistair and I will do part 2 for this in a few days, and we'll catch up here, and you can get an update from us. So just want to say thanks, Alistair, for doing this today. It's quite awesome, mate. You gave us a really good insight, so it's most welcome to do this again.
Okie dokie. Well, good talking to you. I'm off to the dentist now. I'm going to get some work done while there's still plastic available because I don't want gutta percha dentures.
Right. Okay. All right. So you've been listening to Marsden Point News Radio on Wednesday, the 22nd of April, 2022, and the time has just gone 3 minutes past 2 in the afternoon on a very rainy, stormy afternoon here in the Wellington district in the North Island. Yes, it's been like winter. So hopefully we'll catch you all again. So as I say, thank you again for watching and listening. And take care, folks, and see you again. Okay, thanks. Bye.